Hello, welcome to my channel and welcome back if you've been here before. My name is Beth Ann. Today I'm going to be talking about some recent reads, and we're using the word recent with a giant grain of salt because some of these are books that I finished like even a few months ago over the summer, but that's where we're at. Also, something's going on with my laptop and my camera, so I'm not getting the picture of what I'm doing as it's happening, if that makes sense. So when I hold up books, things might get a little weird, but I'll just do my best, talk to the camera, and we'll see how this goes. So the first thing that I wanted to mention is, I guess, the most recent of the three books that I've read, of the three books that I'm going to talk about right now. So this is All About Love, New Visions by Bell Hook. And I really did like this, but it wasn't as sort of deep and mind-blowing as the other book of hers that I've read, which was Communion. So I definitely got a lot out of this book, but mostly in her critique of culture and just feeling like my eyes and my brain were sort of opened up to the ways in which culturally we're very, very bad at talking about love. And especially thinking about, a Eurocentric white middle class culture in the United States, which is the culture that I'm part of. So that was kind of the main thing that I got about that from this, was her critique of that. And then a lot of what she said to kind of push beyond that and move away from that ended up feeling a little flat. So some of it definitely resonated, things about active loving and active listening and respecting yourself within relationships, and definitely a lot of sort of good messages. But then there would be entire chapters where I just felt like it was maybe falling a little flat, or maybe some things that I already knew, and some chapters that just didn't feel like they really applied to me. And so those are all issues that are not with Hooks or her writing itself, really. I think just in terms of who I am reading the book. And also that this book, it's not, the newest of any of her writings. Copyright 2001. And so I think that a lot of what she was saying about culture is definitely spot on. But I also think that some of the conversations that we've been having culturally have sort of moved beyond where things were when she wrote this book. And I think my generation, the millennials, have done quite a bit to change that as well. So I also think there's sort of that generational timing of reading this book that made it not, absolutely blow me away. But still a very wise piece of work, and I'm definitely glad that I read it. I mean, you can see how many little tabs I put in for things that I might want to refer back to eventually. So definitely something that's going to be living on my shelf, and that I can turn to again in the future. So the next thing that I want to talk about briefly is The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich, which really doesn't need an introduction. I think it's still her most recent book, and won the Pulitzer Prize, was all over, bestseller. Just absolutely amazing book, and that was definitely my experience of reading it as well. One thing I really appreciated about this book is that it was historical fiction, because she's basing it on the life of her grandfather, Patrick Gourneau, but it's a fictional character, but a lot of the things that happen in his life and the work that he did in advocating for the rights of his people was really based in that historical story of her own grandfather. And so that really gave a lot of weight to the story, and really made it sort of hit me hard, thinking that so much of this was stuff that really happened to people that were very like the ones in this book. And so in this book, we're following a literal night watchman, Thomas Washosh, who's a leader in his community in rural North Dakota. It's the Chippewa people on the Turtle Mountain Reservation. And he has a job as a night watchman in a plant that's been providing jobs for the community. And the book is set in the early 1950s, when there's a push to, there's a push to pass these emancipation bills in the United States Congress that would basically set these indigenous nations on their own and reduce the federal government support for them. We're talking about a very oppressed group of people who'd been pushed to the margins of society by absolutely heinous actions on the part of the government. And so by and large, they were very against this effort. And so this book is about Thomas Washash leading an effort within his people and organizing with a number of his community members to try to get to Washington to testify against this bill and to try to stop it happening for their people, because they view it as a termination bill that will really affect their ability to live on their land. As limited as their land is on the reservations, it's still their home. And without the support of the government in terms of infrastructure and schooling and things like that, they won't be able to persist in those areas. And so they really see it as a threat to their identity and their way of life, because these emancipation bills would mean that so many people would have to leave the reservations to find work, that it would mean the end of their society and their culture. And I'm of course grossly oversimplifying, but just a fascinating issue, and one of the many horrible points in our history of continuing to try to take rights away and dispossess Indigenous people. So it was a very tough book to read. And Louise Erdrich also weaves in the plight of Native American women, Indigenous women, and the forms of oppression and discrimination and violence that they faced at that time, and they do still continue to face. So just absolutely fascinating read, beautifully written in the way that all of her writing is. There were a few short chapters interspersed through here that really got into more of a creative nonfiction feeling, which was just absolutely beautiful to read. So highly, highly recommend. I absolutely loved The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich. And I've only read a few of her books, but she's definitely one of those authors where I want to work back and make sure that I've read everything they've ever written, over the course of my lifetime. So that was great. And then a book that I have never heard of, except that I grabbed it randomly from the Free Book Warehouse in Baltimore many years ago, is Cloud of Sparrows by Takashi Matsuoka. And this is historical fiction set in Japan in 1861 and sometime immediately after that, because it spans a little bit of time, although not much. And so it's sort of a clash of East and West, because that time was when Japan was opening itself up more to outsiders. And I'm just going to read some of the description of this book, because I don't think I could talk about it in any way that would do it justice, because there's so much going on in this book. So it is the dawn of the new year 1861. After 2 centuries of isolation, Japan has been forced to open its doors to the West, igniting a clash of cultures and generations. And as foreign ships threaten to rain destruction on the shogun's castle in Edo, a small group of American missionaries has chosen this time to spread the word of their God. Among them, Emily Gibson, a woman seeking redemption from a tormented past, and Matthew Stark, a cold-eyed killer with one more death on his mind. Neither realizes that their future in Japan has already been foreseen. For a young nobleman, Lord Genji has dreamt that his life will be saved by an outsider in the new year. Widely reviled as a dilettante, Lord Genji has one weapon with which to inspire awe. In his family, one in every generation is said to have the gift of prophecy, and what Lord Genji sees has struck fear in many around him. As the shogun's secret police chief plots Genji's death and the utter destruction of his entire clan, the young and untried lord must prove that he is more than the handsome womanizer of legend, famed lover of Edo's most celebrated geisha, Lady Heiko, and that his prophetic powers are no mere fairy tale. Forced to escape from Edo and flee to his ancestral stronghold, the spectacular Cloud of Sparrows castle, Genji joins his fate with Emily and Stark, unaware of the dark forces that drive them. Together with Genji's uncle, Lord Shigeru, a legendary swordsman knee-deep in the blood of his own kin, and the enigmatic Lady Heiko, the unlikely band embarks on a harrowing journey through a landscape bristling with danger to prepare for a final battle. Here, on a snowscape stained with blood, horror will mix with wonder, secrets will unravel, and love will duel with vengeance, as East and West, flesh and spirit, past and future, collide in ways no one, least of all Genji, could have imagined. So this book had a lot going on. But it was just beautifully written. I really, really loved it. It was a very sort of understated style of writing. So even when there's action, like samurai soldiers are fighting and there's ninjas killing people from the shadows, like literal ninjas, it was all still just very like beautiful and sort of understated. So it was a lovely book to read. And then we've got all this cool stuff coming together. So we've got the Americans, both of whom, as that synopsis mentioned, have some dark things in their past. So Emily Gibson is really trying to escape and find a new future in Japan, and that gets upended pretty much the moment that they touch land in Japan. And Stark is chasing vengeance. So he's come to Japan purely for that reason. And then we have Lord Genji and Lady Heiko, who are very much in love, even though they, on the face of it, have a very traditional relationship of he being a lord and having essentially a concubine or a lover with Lady Heiko, but he's not really supposed to have emotional feelings for her. And Lady Heiko turns out to be a little bit more than she appears. And is really a strong character through the story. So we have sort of their love story going on, and then Genji is really wrestling with the weight of this clan that he's inherited, which goes back, 1,000 years, and the history of that, and the weight of that, and the weight of the future that he and some of his family members have seen through their prophetic vision. And so he's trying to make decisions with like a very incomplete picture of the way things could go, based on these prophecies that have come through his family and the prophecies that he's experiencing firsthand as well. So yeah, it was just a beautiful book, a lot about the connections that people make, especially in tough situations. Yeah, just a story that I really enjoyed. I've been looking for the sequel for this book, but it's out of print, so it's been a little hard to track down so far, but I'm going to keep looking. So those are 3 of the books that I read recently. They were all really great reads in 3 different ways. 3 great reads that were great in 3 different ways for 3 different reasons. But I would highly recommend all 3 of these. So if you watched this video, if you made it all the way through to the end, congratulations. But have you read any of these books, and what do you think? I'd love to hear in the comments. Thanks. Bye.